Make sure to stop in to Deck Factory for all of your Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card needs. You can find them at deckfactorylima.com. You can also find them on Twitter and Facebook at Deck Factory. What is happening, YouTube? It's Austin here from Big Nine Gaming, and I'm back with... Who am I with?
Casey French.
What's up, Casey? It's good to see you again. What'd you do this time, man?
I actually placed second here this Wednesday's locals, playing Numeron Eldlitch.
Alrighty, let's see what you got here, man.
Alright, so starting off, I play 3 copies of Eldlitch, the Golden Lord. A lot of people run 2 of this. I like to run 3 just because I like to be a little bit different with it, and the effect Ascend is really good. Plus, the Ice Dragon's Prison is a card, so I wanted to be prepared for that just in case if they ever banished both Eldritches, I had at least one for the grind game. So
third, still have the third. I like it. And
then for the Numeron engine, I run 3 copies of the wall. This wasn't all that great. I resolved this maybe once. This with the field spell, I think is just a little bit too much. I probably wouldn't even play this, to be honest with you. If anything, I might run 1 of it, but that's really about it. It doesn't really do a whole lot.
Okay.
It's alright. I do run 1 Pankratops, just help for the grind game. Also, a lot of problematic threats. Gets over some beefy boss monsters and stuff like that, so pretty decent.
Okay, so 1 Pankratops.
And then after the hand traps, I run 3 copies of Ash Blossom, Joy of Spring, and then I do run 3 Ghost Spell. I'm probably going to switch these out for the Skullmeisters just because I feel like Skullmeisters would be a little bit better than Ghost Spells. It came up where Skullmeister would have been a way better in some plays, but it still did its job.
So, okay, so I see you're playing, was that 3 walls, 6 hand traps, and a Pankratops. So are you going second, first, or does it really matter?
It really doesn't matter. I try to go first, but to be honest, I can go first or second no matter what. It doesn't really hurt me any. It varies. I do have some going second cards, but I do try to go first. But if I'm forced to go second, I don't worry about it a bit. So
okay.
Off to the spells, I run 1 Cursed Eldland. Just because I can only get 1 right now. This card is really expensive. But if I were to run 3 of this, I would definitely run 3 of this no matter what. It just does so much. Searching any of your Golden Eldritch spell traps, Eldritch. The send to graveyard effect is really good when it gets sent. It just pluses you so much. So, and then I play 2 copies of white. I'm not a big fan of the black just because it summons them from in defense, and I'm not a really big fan of that. I want to be able to kill my opponent, and also I do run a card that sends this to the graveyard. That way I can get its banish effect to get a like a Conch or a Aquero or anything like that. So, and it really helps with the grind game because it avoids Ash Blossom. So
okay, I like it.
And then I run 3 copies of the Numeron Network. Obviously, it's pretty standard. And then I run 1 Calling. I'm probably gonna bump this up to 2 because you'll probably see here in the extra deck here pretty soon. I only run 1 of each wall, and it came up a lot where I needed to do some of the walls at a second time, so that way I can just OTK my opponent.
Okay. So yeah, definitely it's been my personal opinion in testing. 2 network or 2 calling is the way to go.
Yeah, and even then, it also helps if you draw this, it kind of sucks because you have to hopefully open up the network to even activate it. So.
And even if you open like a network and a calling, it's really nice to hit the first calling.
Right.
Because then you're not even falling to the ogre or anything like that.
Right. And then if you don't need it anymore, it's just good discard fodder. So it's pretty good. I do run the Foolish Burial Goods, just that way I can send my Conquistadors, Aqueros, anything that I don't need at the moment, I can just send to get its banish effect in the end phase right away. That way I don't have to wait 1 turn to get their banish effects. That way I can just keep doing recurring resources and things like that. So This is also really good, sending it off for the White Destiny and things like that. So. And then for the utility spells, I do run 3 copies of Book of Moon. This is great because I can use this and target my own Conquistador or Aquero or anything like that and reset it for the next turn. If I don't need the banish effects, it can just help me grind games and stuff like that. And plus, sometimes booking their normal summon, it's really good.
Okay.
So
stops the link, synchro plays, all that.
Yeah. And then I do run one Feather Duster just to help, out the back row going in the first game, because I don't run any really back row hate going in first game. It's just good utility card. One of nice to play. And then one Upstart Goblin. There's really not much to say about this. It's good for drawing. Good draw one. So off to the traps. I do run 3 copies of the Scarlet Sanguine. It's pretty standard. And then 3 copies of the Conquistador, and then 3 copies of Aquero. I see a lot of people actually cutting this down to 2, and then some people bringing it up to 3. I personally like 3 Aquero because it's just too good. It's a pseudo DE Crow.
It is. It's really nice. There's a lot of decks that are using their graveyard this format. So
yeah, it's too good not to play at 3. And if you don't need the third one, you can always just send it off of the goods just to get more advantage and get cards to your hand. And then I do happen to play once a little bit of spice. I do play Guardian because there's a lot of decks playing Dragoon in this format, and this deck has a hard time outing Dragoon, which this is just a good searchable out to Dragoon. So it's pretty good. And then for the utility traps, I run 2 copies of Torrential. This came in clutch a lot. There was times where I came into the game 3, I use this or use the trap trick, send one, set it, and then my opponent literally went into time, and they just couldn't. There was no way that I was going to let them burn me or even go into the battle phase, because this would just stop them dead in their tracks. And then I did play 2 copies of Lost Wind. I'd never seen this ever, so I can't really say how well this played. I figured as in testing, me sending this with the Conquistador and then using its effect engrave to reset it, I felt like was too good not to play it. But I never really got to see it, so I never really get to actually test it. But I feel like it had been pretty decent overall all around. I did play 2 copies of Punishment. It wasn't really that good, to be honest with you. I really didn't resolve it too much, just because Torrential is just way better than this card, to be honest.
Takes out more than just the one, yeah.
Yeah, and it targets, which targeting this format's kind of anything that targets kind of already has its drawbacks. So I probably will end up cutting that in the near future. And then to search all the normals, 2 copies of Trap Trick. Round off. That is a 45 card main. Like I said, I would definitely cut it down to 40 by just cutting the 3. Let's see. Cutting down to 40 is where I would definitely put it. Off to the extra deck, we run 1 copy of M-Duke. A lot of people run the Link Spider, which you can do whatever you guys want with it. I preferably like the M-Duke just because if it attacks a monster that it points to, it just destroys it. So it's more utility, I find, than just going into Link Spider. I'll sacrifice the extra 200 attack just to destroy a monster that it links to, just to punish the opponent for not playing correctly in the columns. I run a copy of Vendred Savior. This card is pretty insane in this deck. Just in case if my opponent ever plays Rivalry on me, I can literally just go into this Link 2 and then punish my opponent for doing so, because Rivalry does not actually hurt me at all. This card sends your Golden Lord to the graveyard during damage calc, and it gets to 3,200 attack during damage calc, which is insane. It just helps you plus so much more using him. So
okay.
1 Nightmare Phoenix. There's really not too much to say about this. It just helps pop the back row, and it's pretty decent. And then 1 Megaclops. I'm never running this ever again. The only benefit that I had with this is I sent this off of punishment to pop a card that was more than 3,000. So
seems reasonable. I mean,
yeah, it was really lackluster. I summoned this like 2 or 3 times. It got outed like the next turn. So it's really not this great, this format. So.
Punishment with big monster goes Unga Bunga. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing it was really ever useful for. And then obviously I played 1 of each gate. I'm probably gonna bump each gate except for the number 1 up to 2. Just so that way I have more utility. That way I can go into it again if I need to, just to help OTK the opponent.
Okay.
And then I run the 1 Zexal.
Nice. Lock him out.
Yeah, Zexal, it ended up performing very well in a couple of games. It just pretty much, I summoned Zexal and my opponent's just scooped. So there's some decks that just can't play through a Zexal. I played one Pallades. It's there. I never really summoned it too much. There's times where it kind of does help, but it's pretty lackluster. It's just a filler for the most part. It doesn't really do a whole lot. One Gustav Max. I was thinking about going into this a couple of times, but I really didn't need it. But I'm glad this is in there in case I do need it, because I do run 3 of the Golden Lords.
Right, especially because you can summon him out pretty decently. It's getting close to time.
Yeah. It's very easily to get 2 Golden Lords out on the field. So, and then 2 Entis for the punishments. There's really not much to say. I used punishment, like I said, a couple of times. It really didn't do a whole lot. They just kept playing. So, and then I did run 2 Super Poly targets, because I do run Super Poly in the side. I never really got to summon these. Super Poly is probably, it's kind of iffy, this format. It depends on what your locals is playing. It doesn't really do a whole lot, especially in my locals as far as Super Poly goes. So I probably won't run those 2 ever again, really. For the side deck, I run 3 copies of Jizukiru, the Starter Shrine Kaiju. This card, I sided in a couple of times. I never really got to see it, but I figured as far as helping me clear the board going second, this was pretty ideal. If I were to really change anything as far as like this, I'd probably go with Lava Golem instead, just because it helps get rid of more problematic threats. Because I noticed a lot of guys still going into the Savage and the Herald. So this just helps me clear both of those right off the rip, and helping me clear 2 negates. So, and then I run 3 copies of Hey Trunade. This I actually got to use once, and it was really nice because I actually draw 2 of these, and my opponent negated 1, and I was like, okay, activate another one, and it just cleared the whole board, and I was able to play. So
yeah,
it came in pretty clutch.
Back row can be very annoying.
Yeah. And then 2 copies of Super Poly. Like I said, I'm cutting this because it really didn't do a whole lot. I didn't really get to use it, and because I couldn't. There's a time where I just sided this in, and I don't know why I was siding it for. I had other cards that did way better job than that. And then off of the traps, I did run 3 copies of Solemn Strike. This was probably the best side deck card that I ever put in the deck. I was half tempted to main this, but it varies. I never really liked using this going into game 3 just because of time, but this card overperformed, and it did very well. And then obviously I played 2 copies of the D-Barrier because I do have Trap Trick in the deck. It searches this, and it just pretty much just shuts the opponent down. If they go into a link spam, or not link spam, synchro spams, XZ spams, it just shuts them out.
Yeah, it stops them pretty well.
Yeah, it gives me a turn to gain advantage.
Especially with like Hulk and Zoo running around still.
Yeah, definitely. Zeus just utterly kills me. So I want to make sure my opponent doesn't do that, at least for another turn or 2, so I gain advantage. And then I did run 2 copies of Anti-Spell, just so that way, like I said, I can help stun the opponent, make them play my game. That's the whole goal of the deck, is just to play my game and play my pace. So this helped out quite a bit in a couple of games. So.
Okay, so you said you got second. What was your record, man? What did you play against?
My record, I lost only 1 round. I went 3-1. I ended up playing first round. I played against Gravekeepers. I 2-0'd that pretty well, surprisingly. And then second round, I played Altergeist, and he 2-0'd me. That was one of my losses. And then games 3, I ended up... What did I play? Oh, I ended up playing Tunes, and I 2-1 that pretty well. And then round 4, I ended up playing against Infernoble, and I 2-1 that as well. So
okay, so you got a pretty decent matchup set out there. Infernobles, Ultrageist, and some fun tunes and Gravekeepers. So.
Oh yeah.
Alrighty, so you're liking the deck? Gonna keep trimming fat and playing this then?
Definitely, this deck I was kind of skeptical about playing the deck because I'm not a guy that likes to play meta too much. But I will definitely keep playing this and keep throwing a little spice into it and seeing what I can make out of it. So.
Hell yeah, man. Well, we're glad to see you back, and we hope to see you some more, Casey. This is Austin from Big Nine Gaming out.